Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Pretty windy out here this morning and a good bit of chill in the air. But we're going to keep moving forward and hopefully the wind noise won't be too terrible for you. You know, I talk often on this channel about getting out of Babylon. I'm not the only one. Viking Preparedness does it, and a few other people do also. And when I say Babylon, I'm not trying to get into some kind of theological debate on what the biblical reference of Babylon is. I'm simply using it as a way to describe the world, the cities, the worldliness, getting out of it. And I talk about it often about how we should be getting out of those places and getting kind of back here to the rural parts of America to where, you know, things aren't perfect, but you're going to be a lot better set up to be self-sufficient, to take care of yourself. And the odds of finding others that are more like-minded, well, that's going to be a lot better odds than being in the middle of a big city. The thing is, well, how do you do it? So I thought I would talk about that briefly this morning on just simply how you do it. And while it may seem simple, sometimes simple can be tough. And I wanted to address it a little bit. The simplest answer is you just got to do it. It's a major step, and I understand that leaving the city, especially for those of you that may have never lived in the country, or maybe it's been a long time since you've lived a rural lifestyle, especially areas similar to like where we live, where you're really off the beaten path quite a bit. It seems overwhelming. It seems just an impossibility maybe, or that it's just so much work, or that you just can't do it. And to be honest with you, all of those can be very true, but you can overcome it, and I assure you that you can. Usually the biggest question is money. Can I make enough money living out in the country? Is it even affordable? And I understand that many of you are barely getting by in the city, and you wonder, is it even possible to get by out here in the country? Well, yes, but it all depends on the lifestyle that you're wanting to live. Typically, and I'm using for reference where I live, I understand that there are rural parts and even remote parts of the country that don't quite fit into this. But where I live, here in the Missouri Ozarks, the cost of living is typically much less than, say, you know, your bigger cities. And when I say much less, I don't necessarily mean the difference of living in the United States versus, say, Mexico, where you could go down there and for $30,000 a year live very well. But it is less. I get emails often from people saying, you know I'd have to take a pay cut to move there, or live off of, you know, much less income, and I figure that, you know, I'll have $30,000 a year, or $40,000 or $50,000 a year. You know, that's half or more than half of what I make now. Is that even feasible? Can I live there making that amount of money? The answer is yes. I know people, families, that live here off-grid, very simple lifestyles that, while I don't know exactly how much they make, I would guess that they might make between $10,000 and $15,000 a year. Now, I'm not saying that that's an easy and that's common. I'm just saying that it is possible, and it's all depends on, you know, what you're willing to give up. How tough are you willing to live? Typically, you know, even with the increased costs of land right now, it's still cheaper out in the country than it is in the bigger cities. Most other things are quite cheap compared to the big cities, with the exception of a few things. I get it. But if you're really wanting to live this lifestyle, and you're dedicated, and you've got a little bit of grit to you, it is capable, you know, of doing this on a pretty small budget. The first thing you need to do is determine what the extremes that you're willing to live by. Meaning, you know, are you just looking for a turnkey existing little small farm, a little homestead that everything has all the utilities and pretty much all the comforts of home, but you're just wanting to buy that and move there? Or are you wanting to buy some raw land, put a little cabin on it, and live pretty much off-grid in a very rustic way, or willing to live that way until you can kind of build things up by hand? You need to make this decision now. And if you choose to go the off-grid route, which many of us do, and when I say off-grid, I mean just with very limited modern conveniences and living a pretty rustic life, you're gonna have to just get used to some things. I mean, a simple thing like going to the bathroom in a bucket, composting it, heating your water over a wood stove and taking a shower out of a bucket. Things like that that most of you would just can't imagine doing is pretty commonplace for a lot of people that embark on this life, at least in the first months or even a year or two of living this way, until they can kind of build a little bit of infrastructure for themselves. Realizing that there are other benefits to life than just having an instant on-demand hot shower or a flushing toilet. People understand usually when they live out like this that those are just things that aren't necessary for life. Getting used to being away from stuff. A lot of people aren't used to the fact that they may have to drive a half hour or more just to find anything. If you've run out of sugar or milk or eggs or something like that, most people in the city, it's just a few minutes and you can be down at a little corner store or a grocery store and get what you need and get right back home. Understanding that that's not going to be the case out here is important. You need to figure out where you want to live. That is very important, and kind of start narrowing that down. And not every place just out in the country is the same. One of the things that I try to do for people that email me is I've made up a little map of the Missouri Ozarks, kind of circling areas that are much better than others. This is based on my opinions and my experience of living in the Ozarks most of my life, and living out in the country in the Ozarks most of my life, and knowing a lot of areas that are good and some areas that you probably should stay away from just because they're not conducive to this lifestyle. Don't just unless you know the area that you're looking at, don't just buy something online and not at least take a peek at it first. If you're looking at something online, get on something like Google Maps, Google Earth, or one of those types of programs, and look at the area around it. A lot of times there's a lot of deception in photos, and they make the land look really great, and there could be a big junkyard or a massive chicken or hog operation right next door, and they're not telling you that. So certainly be aware of that. Also be aware of a lot of times out in the country, they'll sell you land that looks really cheap, and then you get there and it's hardly usable. You may have bought 10 or 15 or 20 acres, and if you're lucky, there's a half acre of it that you can actually use, because the rest of it is the side of a cliff or down in some gorge or valley, and you can't use it. So look at things like that also. The biggest thing that you have to overcome is just the fear of doing it. I could stand here for hours and recount personal cases of people that I know right here in my area that have done this, that people that have virtually no experience whatsoever of living this lifestyle. They may have a lot of knowledge of other things that they have dedicated their lives to learning, but yet they move out here and they don't really know what they're doing. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's all in your mindset. Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to understand that you're going to make mistakes? It's kind of like building a house anywhere. Your costs are going to always be more than what you expect. It's always going to take longer than what you expect. There's always going to be problems. There's always things that you forgot about. You didn't think about that, and then it gets down to it and you realize, oh man, I didn't factor that in. I didn't budget that in. Now I've got to go back to the store and get this. These are the things that make it hard when first moving into a place like this and getting out like this. Stick with the basics. Shelter, water, heat, the basics. Because that's kind of what this lifestyle is. It's basic. It's not complicated, but it is hard. Even if you get a place that has electricity and has running water and sewer and things like that, it's still a lot harder. You still have to get up when it's cold and windy and when it's snowy and the storming and you have to go out and do things, it's inevitable that if the goats and the sheep get out, or the cows get out, or there's a problem in the chicken coop or whatever, it's always going to be in bad weather. It's inevitable that if you have a dog that's having puppies, or sheep or goats that's having lamb or kids, or a cow that's birthing, calving, any of those kind of things, it's almost always going to happen at the worst possible time. When it's cold, when it's wet, when the ground is frozen. This is just the lifestyle. Those times that you've worked so hard all week long and you're just ready to take a break, and then something breaks. Yeah, not you, something else breaks. A water pipe busts. Something shorts out. You know, the washing machine stops working, whatever it is. It's more amplified, I think, out in this lifestyle. Because we're in the city, things are under a little bit more control. Really a lot more control. And things are just more simplified and more comfortable. Out here, you're kind of on your own. And so you need to be a jack of all trades. You need to develop as many skills on just maintenance. In fact, I've said for years that one of the best skills that a homesteader and prepper could do is just being able to be a jack of all trades, being able to do basic maintenance on just about anything. Can you tinker with your refrigerator and get it to work again? How good are you at, working on a stove or a small machinery like a lawnmower or a chainsaw? Learning how to do this kind of stuff is really going to be important. This lifestyle isn't easy, but it's extremely rewarding. And I can't imagine myself living any other way. Even here, we don't have a lot of conveniences. Things are pretty rustic around here. Yes, we compost everything. I said that the other day. I had some people email me and they couldn't believe it. You mean you compost your own manure, your human manure? Yeah, absolutely we do. We still heat water on a stove. And that's how we heat any of our water. We choose that lifestyle because it simplifies things and it also makes things cheaper. Going back to one of the original things I said is people asking, can I live this lifestyle and only make X amount of dollars, which is generally substantially less than what you make in the city. When I say that yes, you can, the reason why I say that is because if you choose to live a simple lifestyle, your cost of living is much less. The amount of utilities that we spend every month is substantially less than what is done in the city, because we heat with wood, we heat our water a lot of times with wood, we do things very simple. We live in a very small cabin, and so it's the cost of living and the cost of maintaining it and heating it and cooling it and all that is actually quite cheaper than even a regular sized home. The way that we live and the way that many others like us live is doable on a pretty small budget. Of course, the question always is how do you find land? Online, one of the things, as much as I absolutely despise Facebook, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, especially in these rural areas, is that it's very common for people to sell their properties and land without a real estate agent. They just do for sale by owners. And one of the common places they list those is on Facebook Marketplace. And so as much as I despise Facebook, if you're moving to an area or wanting to move to an area, I would advise getting a Facebook account, and if nothing else, just to sign up to some of the local buy-sell groups. So wherever you're wanting to move to, kind of look up the towns in the county around that area, and then do a search on Facebook for buy-sell trade groups in those areas. Sign up to them, and you'd be surprised what you could find when it comes to housing or land on them. And then, of course, there's all kinds of other places to find properties. It is still possible to find for sale by owner. You're going to pay more, okay? It's a premium. You're going to pay more because you're not having to go through the bank. They're not doing a credit check. They're just holding the note for you. But that is possible to get that kind of property. And finding places that have little to no restrictions is possible. I would certainly check on that. You may find an area that's remote and beautiful and has all the things that you dream of, but not realize that it's in an area where there are restrictions. and they don't allow you to live off-grid, or they don't allow you to collect your rainwater or to compost your toilet or anything like that. And so make sure you check on the restrictions around it and any covenants. You know, there's typically no homeowners associations out in the country, but there can be covenants on that land which restrict what type of housing you can, you know, build, or if you have animals or not, or what type of animals. So do check on those kind of things. And then before you buy, kind of drive around the area. Just see how the neighbors live and how, just to kind of get a feel for how things go. Understand that a lot of times out in the country, you'll see various different people living in an area. You may have a home that looks like it's $1 million home a half a mile down for some old, you know, rotted out mobile home that has a bunch of garbage sitting around it. That is actually pretty common out in the country because for the most part, people kind of live how they want to live, and they try to not infringe upon anyone else's rights. Which brings me to the final and most important thing. If you live in the city, whether it's some big far left Marxist city or a moderate city, don't plan on bringing that mentality and those politics with you. Your neighbor may not mow his yard all summer. He may have an old broken down truck sitting out there that he's working on a little at a time. And while in the city, that would be definitely frowned upon, out in the country, that's just how they do things. They may burn their garbage and brush. They may play their radio a little too loud sometimes for you, or they may be target shooting whenever they want. This is the lifestyle out in the country, and one of the worst things that you can do for yourself and for the rest of us out here is to bring your big city mindset out here. If you come out to the country with the mindset that I'm going to fit in, I want to be like them, I want to slow down and live at what I call kind of that Mayberry pace, you know, the old Andy Griffith show. If you come out with that kind of mindset and you're willing to learn, then you'll probably be accepted. If you come out here with this mindset that you want to be just like it was in the city and expect all the people to, you know, live that way and to have all the conveniences, but yet just live in the country, you're not going to be accepted, and it's going to be pretty hard on you fitting in. So don't try to change it. People live out here for a reason, and they like it that way. And so don't bring your big city politics and mentality with it. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order and come out of Babylon. It's time to prepare mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.